welcome back. This afternoon I'm going to be doing the next part of the custom Explorer guitar build. Today I'm going to be doing the test fit up. It's really important as a first step before you start doing anything to the body of the guitar in terms of sanding and finishing, to ensure that all the parts fit and that the neck and the guitar line up is straight. Any adjustments you make need to be made now. As soon as you start sanding, it is too late to send a body back to the manufacturer, and so very often they will advise you, please make sure of the test fit up before you sand, because once you start sanding you can't return the body to them. So that's what we're going to be doing today, checking that all the parts fit where they need to fit, making sure that the strings connected to the tailpiece and up to the headstock all line up relatively straight. Obviously minor adjustments can be made with the truss rod later, but we want to make sure that all of that stuff is solid and everything fits where it needs to be fitting and looks good before we kick off into the sanding process. So yeah, hope you stick around and we'll see how it goes. Cool, so what I have done on this table is just put some cardboard down. This is just an old box that I cut up just to, while the guitar body is quite soft and I've done no finishing on it, any scratches, any sand or anything lying around or dust that can scratch the body of a guitar could leave quite deep marks. So just something that's going to maintain a flattish surface, but at least offer a little bit of a bounce is going to help. I like cardboard. It worked well for me previously. It gives a little bit of space and a flat area to work on. So first off, a couple of things that you're going to need. Obviously all of the hardware, which I've got over here, and your body. What you don't want to be doing is screwing anything in permanently. So what a lot of sites advise you do for your tailpiece is that you use a bit of insulation tape just to stick those in, and I'll show you what we do there. So what we'll do is we'll start with the electronics in the back and work our way forward until we hit the neck and the bridge and the headstock. Cool, so first off we're going to start by putting in some of the tuning, the volume and tone pot and the switch in the electronics cavity. So I am going to grab two of the pots. Although they're identical, I will just pick one volume and one tone pot from the EMG set, and there is a difference to the pots themselves. They look identical, but what you can see if you look at them is, if I can get it to focus, is on the bottom of them they do say, one says passive tone and one says volume. I like my volume on the front and my tone on the back, so I'll turn it over. This is the tone. What's important here is that you're not trying to fit them in completely tight. You're just trying to get a feel for things and make sure that they fit where you want them to. Just to give myself a bit of room, I'm just going to elevate the body. And so this one is the tone, and I'm going to drop that in to the cavity, and I will show you what they look like in a second. And the volume on the front. Just like that. And if you have a look there, you can see them inside the body. As I mentioned in the last video, they're really nice and slim. the last component that I'm going to put in from the back is the toggle switch. This, as I said in the last video, is the EMG toggle switch. Most switches, or most components, the electronics components, will have some of these, if I can get it to focus, adjustment nuts, and that is so that you can set the height once it is in the cavity and make sure that it doesn't stick out too far. I played around with this a little while ago and adjusted that already, and there you can see what it looks like with all three components in, and you can see there's plenty of space and not a huge amount of mess. I'm going to turn it over, and although this may be a little bit awkward to see, I'm just going to screw on the flange for the switch here, if I can get it to go. And there you go. And for now, all I'm looking for is that it fits nice and straight, and then I'm also just going to drop on these two nuts for the volume and tone parts, and again, not screwing them on ultra tight. I don't want to screw anything in too tight into the wood right now, but I just want to make sure that all the components that I've got fit. They go where I want them to go, and they kind of look how I want them to look. So there you go, and then along those two gold knobs are going to fit on, and that looks kind of good. Next thing, this can be quite tricky for your bridge and tail piece. You'll see that these are the posts for the tail piece, and they come in two parts. The outer bit is a press fit into the body of the guitar, and it has a threaded insert, and this is the bit that the tail piece actually connects to. Now the idea is that that piece fits in there. You'll see it doesn't simply slide in, it is designed to be a press fit, and once you push it in, it doesn't come out without a huge amount of force. And so typically what you want to do at this stage is not push it in, because it's going to make sanding and painting difficult, but without it, the rest of the post just wiggles around way too much. And so one tip that they give is to bolster that bit with some insulation tape so that it is somewhat tight, and at least you can get a feeling for it once it is in. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'll grab one shortly. And what you should have is something that kind of pushes in, not too tight, but at least doesn't wiggle around like that. And that's just going to give you an idea for how it is going to fit in the post, but you can slide it in and out without causing any damage to the wood. And I'll do the same on this one. Nice thing about insulation tape is that it is quite thick, so it's pretty easy to build up a good, there we go, that's a great fit. And there you can see now the bridge, the tailpiece, sorry, slots straight in. In fact, that's the wrong way around. No, that's the right way around. Slot straight in like that. Looks good. This this bridge also has, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there it has some locking screws. I won't play around with those too much right now, but those locking screws are pretty good to hold this all in place. And the same goes for the tailpiece as well. It comes with two pieces. The outer bit, that is a press fit into the body of the guitar, if I can get it out. So there's the press fit, it goes into the body of the guitar, and the rest of the post sits on top. So I will take these and just build a little bit of a wall around them of insulation tape so that they don't wobble around too much. So I'm just going to trim it off. So the insulation tape on this was sticking out above the tip of the post, and these posts are drilled just to be the right height. You don't want the insulation tape interfering with the fit. So just cut off the excess so that it fits nice and snug. Fits nice and snug. So there you can see I've got those two posts in, and I can drop that straight on. Next up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to press the neck into the body, and what you should get out of the box with a decent kit is that the press fit of the neck into the body is quite tight. If it's a glue-in neck, you want the sides to be quite tight so that there is a good bond between the body and the neck itself. But also on the bottom, you want that to be quite flat. Well, you want it to be as perfectly flat as possible so that the glue can bind. There's good contact between the bottom of the body of the guitar and the back of the neck, so you want to pay close attention to that joint there and that joint there, making sure that they're nice and flat and straight and there's plenty of good contact. And you want to press it in. Some of the things you want to check for is that that is pretty flat, and the gap or the space between the top of the body and the bottom of the fretboard looks pretty flat, but we will check all of that in a second once we get to putting some strings on and checking that they are all pretty flat and straight and level. Next thing that I'm going to do is I need that space, and I am going to get the pickups out of this guitar, or the pickups out of the box rather. Cool, so the next thing that we want to check is that the fit of the pickups fits well. I needed to put the neck of the guitar in because the back of the neck covers where the pickups fit. What I have done on these pickups is I've already put the pickup cover, which is just a black plastic cover that comes with the kit of the guitar, and all I'm checking for here is that the pickups can fit in nicely without there being any strange gaps. And I'm just raising these pickups slightly. They will need to be raised anyway, but I'm just raising them nicely to make sure that they fit in the body of the guitar and everything looks pretty. So there you can see that is all of the electrical components into the body of the guitar. It looks good. At face value, without checking much, it all looks like it's in the right space. Now what I'm going to do is just swap this guitar around so that we can do the neck. Right, so here what we have, I'll just try and make it a little bit clearer for you, is the headstock end of the guitar. All I'm going to do here is that I'm going to mount 2 of the tuners. I'll mount one in the bottom E and one in the top E position, and that is just so that we can put a bottom E and a top E string on the guitar and ensure that they sit in the correct place and that the guitar is relatively straight, or at least the neck and the body are relatively well aligned. And so we'll need to grab a small spanner. Check what size it is. It looks like it's about a number 10, I think, just to tighten those up. I'll be back in a sec. And again, you're not tightening them up completely tight. You don't want to damage anything just yet. So, but tight enough that they can hold some weight. And that is that. And so there you can see 2 of the tuners on, and they look pretty good. Yep, all good. Now what I'm going to do is set the guitar down, check again that everything's there, and I'm going to grab a set of strings. I think I had some around here. Right now any set is good, an old set is fine, no point in wasting good strings at this point in time. But what you want to be able to check is that things look flat, flush and straight. So these were a set of test strings that came with the guitar, with the body. And I'm just going to grab 2 of them, and there's the toppy, and let's see what it does. Before we spend too much time winding on strings, something that I almost forgot is that you want to clamp down your neck. And so what I've got is 2 clamps here. Again, you don't want to be putting on a huge amount of pressure onto this guitar at this point, but you definitely want to put some clamping force on and make sure that things are where they need to be. So what I am going to do is use a bit of cardboard on the back of the guitar, just to make sure I don't damage anything there, and a bit on the front of the guitar as well, and then I'm just going to put a clamp on to hold things straight. Right, so I've got it clamped on. I'm going to check it from this bottom E side first, and then I will check the top side as well. So as I said, all I'm doing now is just putting a string on and it can be a little bit difficult to check, but if you listen carefully, there's a bit of buzz, but it looks like a guitar. And what you want to be looking at is at that end there, you want to be checking that things are going over straight, and although it's difficult to see from here, what you want to be checking on this end from this side is you want to be looking at the alignment of those strings all the way along. Make sure that it's looking pretty flat. You don't have any weirdness in that this neck is not sitting either at an angle down where the gap along here is getting bigger and bigger, or pointing up so that the gap is starting out and touching at this end as it gets to the guitar. So I'm going to have a look along this edge here and see what it looks like. And what I will say is that it looks pretty good. So I'm pretty happy with that as a fit up. And so what I'm going to do is take it all apart. So one thing that I did notice, and I'm not too sure if I'm going to be able to show you here, is that the two pickup covers, not the pickup covers, I don't know what they're called, these black plastic bits have a slight angle to them. I'll see if I can get one out and show you. Really difficult to see, but they have an angle to them, and I think that this back one is the wrong way around. So what I am going to do is switch it over, but nothing major. Other than that, everything looks pretty flat and pretty flush, which is good. So I'm happy with that. Now that we've checked everything, and I'm pretty happy that everything is the way that it needs to be before we start sanding, there are a couple of things that I did note down as potential issues that I'll need to solve. So firstly, if you have a look, I'm not sure if I'll get it on the camera now. Yeah, you can just see it here. I dropped one of the pickups onto the wood, but only from about maybe an inch, 2.5 to 3 centimeters, and it damaged the wood. It damaged the top, and it's not a huge issue because it is mostly going to be covered by the pickup guard. Yeah, and I also still need to do the sanding, but it's just yet another reminder that right now this guitar is just really soft, super soft wood, and another reminder to be extra gentle with it, even on things like tightening up the tuning, the tuners on the headstock caused a little bit of an indent in the headstock, so although I was careful, I think I could have gone a little bit lighter on them. Here on the electronics component it's not as serious, but you don't want to be putting any additional force on the body of the guitar while it is unprotected. Once you've put a couple of coats of paint on it, it's going to get a lot stronger, and that's going to offer a lot of protection. So until you've gotten the primer and the paint and the lacquer on there, you need to be super gentle and super careful about what you do, unless of course you're going for that rugged 1960s been through Woodstock kind of look, in which case I don't think it matters too much how many dents and things it's got. Yeah, so now all that I'm doing is just taking it apart and making sure that all of my bits go back where they need to go so that I don't lose anything, and very carefully pull out the bridge and the tailpiece bits. These are going to need a little bit of coaxing. For now, I'll just leave the insulation tape on there, because I may need to do some other checks later down the line. We'll see. And I now need to try and get these guys out. Use a bit of cardboard or something. That's not cardboard. What can I use to get these guys out? I'll grab a pair of pliers or something. There we go, this one came out. There we go. And the same thing with the tail pieces, I'll leave that insulation tape on there. Another thing that I noticed is that this side, the tail piece just barely fits. The depth on that is, I don't know what that measurement is, but what I will go and do is measure. Yeah, it's actually going to be okay. You want to make sure that the post holes are going to be more than sufficient to meet the minimum of what your post needs. So these posts I've checked in, there seems to be enough headroom here. Yeah, there seems to be okay. And I'm pretty certain the rear ones are as well. More than enough, yeah. So that's another good check to do. Make sure that your post holes have enough space for the posts to fit in flush, because once you press them in, if they're not deep enough, you got a big problem. Yeah, so last off, taking everything apart, one of the other things that you should do on the back of your neck is mark, and you'll see here I've put a small pencil mark there and down the sides to mark where exactly, once you push that neck in, where exactly does it sit, so that you can then check that the section behind here is completely flat, which I will do in a subsequent video. But also, you also want to not touch this in this world. So when you're sanding, do not touch the sides behind that line, and do not touch the bottom with any kind of sandpaper. You want to leave this as tight as possible so that the glue can bond as tightly as possible to that. And that is it. Is there anything else that I want to do now? Oh yeah, one other thing that I noticed. On most electric guitars, you will normally have there it is over there, a grounding hole that is a hole that drills from the inside of your cavity to the back bridge. And now, because this was plugged and then re-drilled, or plugged in, re-drilled, that ground wire has now gone missing. It is no longer, there is no longer a hole for that ground wire to go. And so that is something else that I will need to do, is make a new hole for that, so that I can solder the tip of that into here, the post itself, so that the guitar is grounded. Otherwise you get a terrible buzz, which you never get rid of. So having that ground wire is super important. So I will go and drill that, and I think that's it for today. Cheers everybody, have a good week.